welcome to another edition of Coffee Talk. I'm verklempt, Joe.
I'm verklempt.
I got a kink in my connected gazoints. Actually,
We've
no.
got topics you can discuss among yourselves.
It's neither ultimate nor effort. Discuss. Guys, welcome to another episode of the Ultimate Effort Show with Alex
And Joe.
And man, we have got a great lineup today. We're going to go behind the sheet, finally, for our good friend Rogue over at the Runehammer Forum. We are going to talk about building a thief-type character. You're stealthy,
sneaky,
backstabby, all those juicy bits. We're going to talk about building thieves or shadows if you come from an older edition of ICRPG.
Yep. And Master Edition. And we're still called Shadow.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we're going to go behind the screen. Mm-hmm. And we want to build on that concept we talked about last time, which is peril. But as part of that, Joe, I want to reveal the biggest monster, the most evil thing that a
can't, Alex. It's too perilous.
No, I've got to let it out of the portal, Joe. Like we've got to cast this demon into the light. I want to reveal the biggest monster, the biggest evil that new GMs are going to face.
Oh yeah.
Well, frankly, any GM will face, not just new ones. If you've been doing this, 50 years, like you have, right?
I've been running games since Jesus was a baby.
I want to reveal the biggest monster that you're going to face, and then how to conquer it as DM. So stay tuned for that. But first, Joe, there's been some craziness happening at my house that I want to talk about. First of all, I have to ask you, how is Andor? Without any spoilers, is Andor good?
Yes. No spoilers. I will just say yes.
Okay.
I love it.
Awesome.
This isn't a spoiler, but the bell ringer is one of my favorite characters ever.
Okay.
He's brief. He's tiny. He's doesn't even have a name, but I freaking love him because he's so thematic and he builds so much mood and I don't know, it puts some realism and I don't know, it's good. You gotta watch it. Andor is great.
All right. Well, I it's in my future. I think I'm gonna watch the first episode today. With old Xander with the council. We're going to watch that. But in the meantime, we won't be in next weekend. You didn't know that. Because my oldest son is getting married.
Yes. Congrats.
And it is a Star Wars themed wedding. Have I told you that?
No. Oh my goodness.
So my new daughter-in-law to be, it was her idea. The bride wanted a Star Wars themed wedding. We love her. Anna, if you're listening, we love you. We love you.
I don't know you, but I love you.
You fit right in. Right. She wanted a Star Wars themed wedding, and her biggest goal is to have the archway of lightsabers for the bride and the groom to walk through. So Xander and I ordered lightsabers. They came in this week. As you can imagine, what has been
chaos in the Alvarez home
happening at my house. We have been having lightsaber battles every night. The sun goes down, the lights go off. Yeah, and then you just hear throughout the house. Yes. So that has been happening, and I figured you'd be interested in hearing that. The other important thing is that Jeff Kahn is coming. Jeff Kahn is the final Mace. If you guys don't know what Mace is, it was the Mid-Atlantic Convention Expo. It was a game convention. It started in North Carolina, I think as far back, Joe, as 1997. Yeah. But it moved to Charlotte, North Carolina in 2012, where it's been ever since. A fantastic setting, fantastic locale, tons of great people. The last time I was there was 2018, before the pandemic.
Ooh, right, so, the before times.
The before times. So I am super excited to get back. But what's relevant to our discussion and what's most important is that old Xander and I, we signed up for several games. One of which is we're playing in tentatively. We're at least registered for DM Scotty's Easy D6 game. He's running an adventure called Temple of the Runehammer.
Oh man, that's gonna be wonderful.
So super jazzed about that. And then the other piece is Damien Sellers from our group.
Yes.
Who I just think, Joe, he is the coolest cat, right?
Like, I love Damien.
Yeah, and
I don't
know because he lives far away. I don't know what his arrival to Mace, aka Jeff Con, is going to look like.
Right.
But I think he's going to step off a helicopter probably with an explosion behind him because that's
more than likely. I don't think he's going to step off the helicopter. I think he's going to be on the end of a rope as the helicopter flies over.
Yes. That's how I imagine Damien arriving. But he is running a Blood and Snow game, like a traditional ICRPG Blood and Snow game. We're signed up for that. I can't wait. And then, Xander and I also signed up Sunday morning at 9 a.m. because we're idiots. We signed up for a Dread game, which I have never played before.
Which one is Dread? Is that it's the one that uses the Jenga tower? Or the candles? The Jenga tower.
The Jenga tower.
Yes.
To determine your actions, and we are all contestants on Survivor. But it goes horribly wrong. It's a horror game. There's something else on the island. So
that's grand.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. So that's going to be tons of fun. Sign up for those 3. But for most of the community, we intend to run a bunch of games. I intend to run a bunch of games in the evenings. Old Hankard Fernale will be there. I know he's going to be running stuff. Scotty will be running. DM Scotty will be running around, which is going to be great. Try to catch him. And then we have several members from the community who've already indicated that they're going to be there. So I can't wait, guys. If you're listening, cannot wait to meet you. Can't wait to roll dice with you. For me, it will have been a long time since I've been at an actual table. So, man, I just can't wait. So, registration this week went live on Thursday. We're in some games. We're going to run some after-hours games, playing some after-hours games, and should be a really good time.
So good.
Yeah.
So good.
It's going to be great for our Runehammer community. So that's awesome. And then, Joe.
Yes.
You just got done running our council game Thursday night.
Yeah. Yes, I did.
And I don't know what we can say about the system that you're running.
Right. I think that's probably still a little under wraps at the moment.
It's confidential, but it's something new.
Yep.
But I think we can say it's been awesome.
Yeah, I've been loving it. Like exploring it from the GM side, with it being a totally new kind of system. Like it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, yeah, and I think also, you've been on the player side of it too.
Yep.
The character creation is really awesome.
I love it.
I do too. I love it. And in terms of the options and the creativity, I think it's just going to be amazing. But you were in the unenviable position of running a brand new system for the council. But I dare say we're having a blast, man.
That's awesome. Man, I tell you, I have been sweating every session so far. I mean, I've run it twice now. Or, we're 2 sessions in.
Yep.
I have been sweating each time, like, am I doing this right? Like, am I putting enough stuff in there? Is it enough of a challenge? Are these guys getting bored? Oh my God. And then the brain starts going, oh my God, you're screwing it up. You're screwing it up. But it has been successful every time. Like I've heard from you guys, you're like, oh, this is awesome. I'm loving it. The pressure, I'm sweating. And
nah, man, you're doing great. Well, and I think just, for the listeners, so they know it's pretty awesome. We have this awesome cast of characters. So we have Kelsey Dion, who's playing Morella, who is this blonde-haired, like crystal blue-eyed, kind of waifishly thin girl. She's a paladin demon hunter, like decked out in this awesome armor, with pauldron. She's like a shining beacon of purity,
great sword, everything. Yes,
the whole, but she's a demon slayer, which is just awesome. And she's our tank, one of our tanks. The other one's old Hankerin. He's playing Glorfin. He's kind of I guess, would you call him a barbarian, basically?
I would think, yeah, barbarian. He's kind of got like some Conan vibes to him.
Yeah,
Definitely
Conan.
in a barbarian style.
Yes,
Loincloth, big helmet, monster of an axe.
monster of an axe that does a truckload of damage.
Right?
Um, and who's so righteously like set on his path and his
Yeah.
oaths. So great.
Yes.
I mean, as you can imagine, what Hankerin would play. Then we have Xander with the council. He's playing Father Desmond.
Right. Such a beautifully, beautifully flawed and wonderful character.
Yeah, our priest slash healer.
Slash gambler, brawler, drunk. I love it.
More than half the time. Yeah, his character art he's pulling on these gloves, because he's a brawler. It's just great. And then I'm playing Arson Squiles, who is he's a scout, basically a ranger type.
Mm-hmm.
He's a little bit of a thief. He's got some of that questionable moral kind of thread running through him. But the most important thing about him is he's a ranged fighter, not through a bow, but primarily through his pet. He's a falconer. He has Lady Thistledown, who is his his ranged attacker. So
yeah, it works so wonderfully in game. Like, I have to tell you guys, it is a wonderful sight to see.
Yep, and
definitely a twist on that ranged character. Like, it's cool.
Yeah, so that is our group. Joe has taken us into the depths. The last several sessions we've been in the depths of this mountain, where we were fighting the Duragar, who
beneath the Tower of Mephiles. I believe that's what it was called.
Yes.
Ancient ruined tower.
And last time we found out they were stamping out all this gold, and they're doing it to appease, quote, the heart of the mountain. We disrupted that ritual.
Well, also how they're doing it, they have, by the way of those worms, these tiny worms, which kind of have this weird influence or like sense of control that don't necessarily give the people that they corrupt, which is all of the rest of like the townsfolk from Mouse, where you guys are from.
We had to free more than a few of those folks.
Oh yeah, they've been subjugated and kind of have like this undying will, this will of the worm, to keep mining this gold for these Duragar to smelt down and stamp out and make all of these coins.
Yes,
which are part of this ritual to appease the mountain, the heart of the mountain.
And as you can imagine, Arson was a bit overcome by
so much gold.
All the gold. nearly to the death of everyone, including himself and his pet. As you did this awesome, beautiful scene where the lava was rising in the room.
Yeah, once the ritual was stopped.
And more importantly, I don't want to give too much away, but in ICRPG terms, basically the target got harder every round as the lava got up to a point where if it had hit a certain point, we'd all be dead.
Yeah, once that, because I was using timers. I pulled timers over because they're beautiful. They add that extra urgency, especially like, as a player, I've seen it. I know you have, when you're watching, like, oh, it's down to a 2. We've got, okay, how many moves do I have to get out of here? Oh, this is getting really close. Because when that timer expired, that whole area you guys were in would have been covered in this magma, this rising lava. Like, you guys would have died.
Yes, absolutely. Like, and importantly, you were prepared to go there as a DM. If we hadn't made it out, we'd be dead. Like, total TPK. So it was not just a mere bluff. Like, it would have happened to us. It was so great. We were sweating every moment. We had to leap over a chasm of lava to escape. It was just great. And that is going to lead us ultimately, because you did it so well, Joe, into our talk about peril.
Peril.
And the way in which you sort of conquered some demons. But first, let's go behind the sheet.
Oh wait, I wasn't supposed to sound effect.
That's okay. We're gonna go behind the sheet. First, let's build some thieves.
Oh yes.
So Joe, you are always so awesome in this segment. I want to know what do you got, man? Like where did your brain sort of wander to?
Right. Ooh, well, I think, man, we've got a couple we want to look at, but I think I'm going to go right from the top of where we were looking. I think I'm going to start mobility.
Okay. Yep.
And
so let's back up for a second, right? We sort of pre-show we had talked about 3 sort of buckets.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
We had talked about a stealth build, like your classic sneaky sneak. Yep. Maybe even along with that, maybe a trickster build, like pickpocketing, that sort of stuff.
Yep.
We had talked about your sort of backstabby DPS assassin type, right?
Yes.
And we'd also talked about sort of your movement / maybe even like slightly a scout type build, right? High mobility. So you want to start with mobility?
Yeah, I want to start with mobility.
All right.
And I know classically so far, I say classically, like we've been doing this forever, but I mean, I guess we kind of have. But so far, I've kind of been going right from the book, specifically from the shadow page, or well, today's shadow page, where Alex, you've kind of been jumping and branching out to pull something together, which beautiful. But for this one, with this mobility, like, and this one, like, I wouldn't see my life form having a whole lot to do. I mean, yeah, you could go elf if you wanted some of those dex stat bumps. You could go with a gerblin, human. Those are kind of like a little not as important to the idea of the mobility build. You know, if I were to step out, I might look at a Reptoid because they have some extra cool stuff. But I think for this, I'm just going to look at a classic human. Classic human for stats.
All right. Okay.
You know, on the point side, it lets me like pick kind of a little bit what I want to do there. But anyway, going straight out, starting ability, shadow. I would go with the scout. When using Wiz to seek out details or hidden truths, roll easy.
Yep.
That's already like helping out. I know we're looking at high mobility. For my starting loot on that mobility sense, I would go with those spider claws, which I'm not getting any extra movement, but that lets me scale or move across any surface as if it was normal.
That's a beautiful choice, Joe. And let me just jump in there and say, you could also go same kind of idea, spider claws or even Reptoid symbiote.
Yep.
Right. You could reskin that guy.
Oh, easy.
Right. To gain that sort of milestone. But I agree with you. I exactly wrote down spider claws / Reptoid symbiote. I would do either of those so I could cling to any surface.
Yeah, walls, ceilings, it doesn't matter. Oh, there's a pit trap. Cool. I'm going across the wall.
Exactly.
I'm not doing it like Prince of Persia. There's no chance I'm going to fall off.
Right. I'm going to Spider-Man this. Yep, absolutely.
Exactly.
Yep. Okay.
So I think that's where I would look at for Scout. As much as I would love to dip back to Core 2E because there's a beautiful piece of loot from the Scout that I could piecemeal in.
I'm gonna talk about it.
Yep. I figured. but definitely with that, like looking at milestones down the road, I would definitely be looking for something that gave me some extra movement. Or maybe I'd get lucky and loot something that did that kind of thing.
Exactly.
But I think that would be, I think, the beginning of my mobility character.
I agree. Absolutely. I had all of that, Joe. And this is good.
What else you got on mobility?
Well, this is great because we talked about a high mobility character last time for the range fighter too. So this sort of dovetails. Don't forget blip module. Like to me, that is the ultimate piece of mobility gear. In a fantasy setting, you absolutely could reskin that as your speed boots, or you have these weird bracers, or you have something that lets you sort of teleport, sort of Nightcrawler style.
Ring of teleportation, even something as simple as that. Like
yes, like oh man, like I'm getting visions of Steve. He kind of twirls his ring, like let's it vamp everywhere. Yes, or you're doing the sci-fi like. Just I got the blip module, man. I phase in and out of stuff. Epic.
Hells yeah.
So and I have seen, by the way, blip module and some of these other things that you've been talking about used to great effect. Like blip module and spider claws, or blip module and Reptoid symbiote. You disappear in front of a guy and then you're on the ceiling above them and they have no clue. It's like it's the most epic move ever.
Right.
In
Couple
fact,
that with a Garrote for a weapon. You're up above the guy, zinc.
In fact, I will tell you, one time I was playing in one of Shaker's games with Hankering and some of those other early cats, and my space cowboy, my terraformer Cord, he had the blip module and he had Reptoid symbiote. And now he was Cord as a space cowboy. You know, he wasn't really a shadow / thief type character, but that high mobility combo sort of turned him into that. And at one point, the whole party got wiped except for Cord. Like they're all down, they're all dying. I think Matt had kind of overdone his challenge rating. Like it was a bit on the high side. So we were just getting crushed. And Cord was blipping and teleporting and clinging and he was all over the battlefield. It's the only reason our party survived was that high mobility. And you know, classically, traditionally, when you get screwed like that, you turn to your thief to fulfill that role.
Yeah.
Right? To get around the battlefield quickly, to avoid enemies, and to to take care of your party, or to go get the idol, or to like go off and do your thing, man. Like get across the battlefield. It's beautiful.
Exactly.
And then, man, I gotta go wing boots.
There it is.
They are a favorite. You know they're a favorite of mine. The old Scout back in 2nd edition. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go buy a copy. You can still get a copy. Yep. I think you should have both Master Edition and Core 2E because there are still some loot choices you're not going to find in Master Edition that are so beautiful. Wing boots is one of them. The other one, Joe, I was going to save this till the end.
Oh, boy.
But dang, you backed me into a corner going with mobility first. Now, this will be a good segue for maybe going into the backstabby.
I guess it's good we're talking about mobility since I kind of put you in that move and hustle.
You did. My mobility, like I got to roll a save here. My favorite piece of thief loot ever without fail, 100%. If I'm thinking I'm going to build a thief, I am going for this item 9 times out of 10. It is the best item I think ever. Do you know what it is?
I might have a clue.
No, I'm going to let you talk about that.
Oh. Ooh.
I'm going for the Shadow Dagger out of 2nd edition.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yep.
Now, the Shadow Dagger, if you have not been...
I can't reach my book.
Paying attention. I know. I made that mistake last time. I've got it right here. The Shadow Dagger is attack with magic effort. So you're doing a D10... but it's attack with magic effort even after moving far.
Yes.
So high mobility, you want to like get in, make a strike, get back out.
Yep.
Shadow Dagger's your friend. It also, I think, leads maybe to the next bucket, which is sort of that backstabby DPS character. I think Shadow Dagger's perfect for that type of character.
The same thing. Yep. It's like a lead-in.
Oh my god, that's my favorite. So Joe, what do you got for the backstabby? The DPS guy,
right? Again, I'm the new one here. We're gonna play this off. This is my first time in, so I'm just going still Shadow right off the book. If I'm going for that, I mean I've got to take starting ability Assassin for my Shadow. If the target doesn't know you're there, your first attack cannot miss.
Yep,
that's a beautiful thing. That's already in there for. I mean, it's called Assassin. That's already that like. DPS backstabby dude.
I'm done. I'm out. You just solved it.
Well, my starting loot for that just makes it a little tasty, a little extra tasty.
Okay.
The dagger kit. I got to take the dagger kit. Those masterwork blades. Crit on an 18, 19, or 20 with those 3 blades.
Yes.
So that's a scenario where, sure, my first attack's are going to hit. No matter what, it cannot miss. I'd still be rolling because if I 18, 19, or 20, I get to add ultimate effort.
It's beautiful.
Right on top of already being there. So like there's great stuff there. I mean, that feels like that DPS synergy that we're kind of looking for, that backstabbiness.
Dude, 1,000,000%. 1,000,000%.
And that's straight out of the book.
Straight out of the book.
I think that's where I would go. I mean, obviously there's some of those extra loot choices. For the rest of the build, I would definitely be getting like the what is it called? Like the knife belt.
Yes.
I believe it is. Yeah, knife belt. So it can hold up to 8, including a protective sheath for poison blades.
Well, yeah, so that's where I was going to go next. Is poison blades. I think you can't go wrong anytime you're making that sort of deadly assassin or thief type character. Like adding poison to your blade is just a classic.
Yes.
To this day, Brent Weeks' Way of Shadows is my favorite pulp piece of fiction to read. I love that concept of the assassins in that book. And poison blades are huge. And honestly, in worlds, in the milestone paths, like maybe thinking acid kit.
Yep.
I think that's pretty cool, or even reskinning the acid kit as a poison kit.
Right.
I think is a fun move.
You could even jump into some of the starting loot out of the Magic book, which that Dragon Fang.
Oh,
Sure
dude!
Called Dragon Fang. Oh, did I jump the gun?
Yeah, you sniped me, bro. I was just getting ready to go there.
All right, mouth shut.
Nope.
Stopping.
Nope. You nailed it. That's beautiful. You're 1,000,000% right, Joe. I love where your brain is at. That dragon's tooth from the Magic loot is epic for that. Mm-hmm. And and somewhere, Joe, I thought I couldn't find it, that there's also a poisoner's kit out there in the Runeverse, in one of the loot tables. I could not locate it. If you can, that's great. But I would just say, to just sort of put a pin in this topic, if you're just looking to do that high damage, one thing that you might think about might be the Vibroblade module from the original Ghost class, Warp Shell Ghost class, which is add an ultimate roll to all melee damage rolls. So to me, I think that's awesome as a starter. And then frankly, there are other things that you could add. You could go Kedish chains. Ooh, yeah. So if you're imagining that sort of maybe like a fighter type thief, which Rogue, I'm just going to tell you, bro. I'm just telling you really what thieves are. You could certainly go with Kedish chains and string attacks together. Like maybe you're one of those weavy sort of dagger guys, like Cloak of Shadows. You're sort of dancing with your cloak and your knife. Like that kind of stuff would be awesome.
Yes.
And then all of that would work even too with some of the range builds we talked about. So maybe you imagine you have more of a sniper type assassin or a sniper type of thief. You could add in some of that we talked about last episode.
Yeah, easily.
Anything else on that before we move to the classic stealth type character, Joe?
I don't think I have anything really, but on the Poisoner's kit, I don't remember if that was like rollable loot or if that also was from the Magic book.
Ooh,
like further on, it might have been part of like the Alchemist kit or some
be
variation of that, or Potioner's kit or something. But I do know there is a Poisoner's kit somewhere.
Yep. Well,
place where it is, but I think that's the only extra I have is.
From my standpoint, just reskin something. If you find something similar to that works, just reskin it. I'm a guy and I've got like all these like vials of like fungi, and I've got all these like pastes and creams and like saps and like all this stuff I've collected, and it all is some sort of weird poison,
or a poison toad.
Yeah.
Kept on your head under your hat.
Yeah. So my goblin, who just has a poison toad under his hat, right? He just rubs, the toad slime on his blade and on other people. and that, by the way, was just very simple. It does 1d4 additional poison damage that round, and it does an additional 1d4 every 1d4 rounds thereafter. So it's just a very simple mechanic. I think we just sort of homebrewed it or kind of reskinned some stuff to arrive at that. It's just such a great mechanic for that type of thief, right?
And thematically wonderful.
Thematically wonderful.
That character.
Well, because you could just imagine old Keck, right? Like, he's not gentle with that toad. He kind of squeezes it in his hand, his eyes are bulging out. And he rubs it everywhere, right? So, yes. All right. I think we have covered the backstabby DPS thief. And you can combine, by the way, I will say also, too, you can combine that with the movement, right? So you can do a half and half, like arrive quick. Again, Shadow Dagger. Like Shadow Dagger, it's still the best piece of thief loot. All right. The one thing it won't do for you though is stealth. So stealth builds.
Right? How do you stay hidden? What's your best bets there?
Yep. Joe, what do you got?
All right. For me, still straight out of the book, or straight off the shadow page. This is the one where I am making the master of stealth. The obvious choice for that starting ability is our thief. Stealth rolls are always easy.
Yep, love it.
So automatically, my stealth, I'm knocking 3 off the target every time I roll my dex to stay hidden.
Every time.
That's a big boon.
That's
because it's always easy.
Yep, that's the old thief cloak too.
Yep, old thief cloak, exactly.
Yep. So no matter how you envision it, like it's an ability, which I really love. It's just something you do, no matter what, can't be taken away. Or you imagine that your character is has a cloak that can do it.
Yep.
Right? It's part of his garb. He's wearing that mottled gray camo, that city camo.
Right? Like, what is that other one? From the Path of Smoke in Worlds, and the Paths are also included Master Edition.
Yep.
The Path of Smoke, there was the heck was that cloak called? Or I think it's like the Dark Hood or something like that. But that's the one where your stealth only fails on a 1.
Ebony Hood.
Ebony Hood.
It's the Ebony Hood. Actually,
that's a beautiful piece down the road.
What's interesting about that one is Ebony Hood it's almost, I would say, almost a little bit OP, because Ebony Hood says no matter what, you always get targeted last.
Oh, that's right.
So if an enemy has a choice between you or somebody else, they see somebody else first.
That's right. I know there's. I'm mixing loot pieces. Yep. I know there's one that only lets you fail on a 1.
Well, I'm getting ready to talk about it.
Oh, okay, cool. then I will keep going.
Yep.
For the stealth loot, I'm already easy on stealth rolls. I would jump for that pocket cloak.
Yep.
There's kind of a nice synergy there, where it's a cloak with 2 versions. So I can either treat all carried inventory as equipped, or I can have 10 extra carried slots. And I think if I'm going stealth, kind of looking for some loot, I think I might actually take like that extra 10 slots.
Absolutely.
So that bumps me up to be able to carry 30 different things. Just from all those extra little pockets I've got hidden around in this cloak, and you can't find them. But I know where they are.
Absolutely.
That gives me the ability to carry more stuff, because I'm going to be sneaking around and grabbing stuff left and right.
Yep.
That chest over there, I'm going for that. That other chest over there, I'm going for that. I love you, Dennis, by the way. I just got to say it. I'm going to get every chest in the room.
Dennis has a problem. He needs a support group. Because he is a little bit addicted to loot.
Oh, yeah.
It's okay, Dennis. Me too.
We love you.
Me too.
We all are. It's really hard to play a character that's like, I have 5 items and that's all I'm going to have. Right. I don't care about it's hard to play that character because I'm like, I want to roll the D100.
Right. I have given up material possessions. Oh my God. Why?
Oh.
Yeah. Oh man, that's awesome
stuff. Yeah, and where would you go? Where is your stealth? Where's your stealth sneaky dude going?
Well, I mean, I think I agree with you. The thief starting ability, I would absolutely take that, or reskin it as a piece of loot if that's how you imagine your character. So, and I would just say that as an invitation. Any of these abilities, if you view your character as it not being intrinsic, just make it an item.
Yep.
Right?
Indeed.
Like it's now your cloak, or it's now your modeled camo, or it's now your, you've boiled down the sap of the special, tree to make the perfectly silent boots, right? Yes. Like that's what your guy has, or you've imported the finest silk to make the best like set of thieves clothes that don't even, make that corduroy sound when you walk. Like if that's how you envision your character, just reskin it as loot.
Yep,
but I would go thief starting ability, only fail on easy. But then I love the old Shadow class had the thieves boots, and that's what you were thinking of, Joe. You only fail your stealth roll on a 1.
That's the one.
Yep.
Oh, wow, straight into core.
Yes.
That's the one.
Or the old Ghost from Warp Shell had the stealth module.
Yes.
Which is very similar to the disappear milestone. Mm-hmm. And that's basically you're just invisible.
Yep.
That's it. Like you just go invisible, and once you're invisible, they only see you if you attack or move. So
right, it's my 111th birthday, and I say good day to you. Whoop,
yep,
ring on.
but that's
Poof.
epic. I would definitely consider smoke bombs. So that
Yes.
so maybe you're going more of that trickster type character. I would definitely consider smoke bombs so that you can not
Oh
only
yeah.
hide yourself but also others around you. And that's a
Yep.
good synergy too. Like you fill the area with smoke, maybe the enemies now it's hard, and then you only fail stealth on a 1. Like
Yep. That's the old magician's disappearing trick. Like when we
exactly
go back to like the vaudeville days, poof.
right. Or you envision
Classic
your
ninja
character
look.
right. Yeah, exactly. Ninja like you envision your character as a ninja or that assassin type. That's a perfect way to go. Um, I think probably those would be sort of my stealth pieces. The one thing that we did not talk about, Joe, and I know you wanted to, sort of along the lines of that sort of trickster class, is the greedy gloves.
The greedy gloves.
A classic of ye olden age.
Yes. Anytime you loot, roll twice.
Yep.
You're greedy. You're picking up extra stuff.
So there you go, Dennis.
Right. The sticky bandits. It's an old one.
Yep. Yep.
So
yeah. So greedy gloves are perfect. You get to every time you roll for loot, you roll twice.
Yep.
With Keck, however, my little goblin,
beautiful self-nerf.
I self-nerfed, and every time he rolls for that second piece of loot, he has to roll it on the bizarre loot table. 1, showing that table some love, but 2, he pulls out the craziest items. And
that
he has
locust symbiote thing or symbiote, like that is so gnarly.
Well, that's what I was getting ready to say. He has that, that like flyer symbiote that he pulled off of that table. And now, considering he's a thief, we back to mobility or movement. Anytime he jumps off something high, his like wings go and he glides down. So that's a beautiful combo, an unexpected one that the dice created for us, but that's a beautiful thief combo. Like you just have a backpack that like it turns into a glider. How epic is that? But greedy gloves are fantastic. Rolling on the bizarre loot table is fantastic, and I will tell you, having a character from a thief standpoint who collects all this odd stuff, and then somehow finds a way to use those, like a moment will happen where this bizarre item will come into play and to great effect, and your table will love you for it. When you're constantly pulling out this wild stuff that saves them. From a player standpoint and a creative person standpoint, oh, it's so satisfying, Joe. It's so beautiful that he does that.
I love watching it every time. When he's like, Keck reaches into his bag and like everybody at the table. What's coming out?
What has he got?
What's coming out?
Right. So and that is only possible because of greedy gloves.
Yeah.
So just really great.
Beautiful.
All right, Joe. I think we have covered thief builds.
Pretty good thief build stuff.
Yeah.
And hey, anybody watching, if you've got different ideas on a thief build, like drop it in the comments. Let us know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like hit us up. How would you build a thief? What would be your favorite type of thief?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talked about the sort of what we saw as the 3 main buckets, that mobility, that stealth, and that, damage assassin type. But, hit us up. Like, what do you think? So we want to know, and we'll talk about it. All right. So, Joe, I think it's time to talk about the big monster in the room.
It's too perilous. Have to have some of the peril.
Yeah. Message for you, show.
Yeah. So what is it? What is this? What is the biggest monster?
Yeah. Well, that means, Joe, we've got to go behind the screen. All right. So there is a monster in the room. Yes. To me, this is the biggest enemy. If you are a GM out there, this is the biggest thing that can sabotage your games. The number one enemy. And it's aimlessness.
Yes.
Aimlessness at the table is not your friend.
No. And it's something that it can happen whether you're a brand new GM or whether you have been GMing since the Stone Age. Like it's a monster and it's going to happen.
Absolutely. And so I think what I'd like to do, Joe, so that people sort of understand where we're coming from, is frame the problem, right? Like, let's talk about it. So imagine this scenario. You build your character, you're excited to play. You get together and you show up, and your GM is like ready to go and everybody's all excited.
Yes.
And then for 3 hours straight, your GM reads or talks to you or describes stuff, and you don't get to roll dice at all.
I've stacked my dice every way that I can. Can I use your dice to stack those too?
Right? Exactly. And usually that's how those behaviors manifest, right? The first thing you start to see is players fiddling with stuff because they start to get restless. You start to see the dice stacking behavior. They'll stack them up. They'll start, playing with their hero coins. They will start to doodle on their sheet. And then probably the next step after that is the phones come out and people just check out.
Yep.
And to me, that is the biggest problem. The other thing that you see, by the way, with aimlessness at your table, when players don't have a clear direction, when they don't have something to do that's constructive, is that then you start to see behaviors that aren't constructive. So you start to see murder hoboism. You start to see what I think is maybe a secondary monster where they start to make arbitrary decisions. Why did you attack that NPC? That person was nice. I just wanted to. Because they didn't.
It's that aimlessness.
They didn't have something else to do.
And I think I know you've said it before. It's like they are creating their own fun now.
Correct.
Because the GM is not giving them that opportunity.
Right. In terms of like the hero's path or classic drama as we absorb it in fiction, the hero doesn't have an obstacle to overcome at that point. And as a DM, that's one of your number one responsibilities. The byproduct of failing to provide your players with meaningful obstacles is aimlessness. It will suck the fun out of your games. People will walk away with this vague sense that something is wrong in your game or that they didn't have fun and they can't explain it. Like, they won't know at a 30,000 foot view what's happening at the table. They just know they're not having a good time. Some people will sort of mealy-mouth say, "Oh yeah, that was great," but not really mean it.
Yep.
And that to me is like the slow death of groups. A lot of times groups will even fall apart because of this. And
I was going to say that.
Yeah. And people won't have, they'll be like, "Man, why did my group fall apart?"
Yeah.
Joe, I got to ask you this.
And I'm not saying every group falls apart because of that, but I will go out on that limb and say that, oh yeah.
That's right. So Joe, do you know, by the way, what the hardest move in the universe is?
The hardest move in the universe? Oh man. I might need a mirror to see if maybe I know it somewhere here in my body. I'm going to go right out and say that I think that looking inwards, that self-reflection is the hardest move to make in the universe.
The hardest move in the universe is taking this finger and pointing it towards yourself.
Yep.
And so I would just say, many times, if you're experiencing these problems in your games, if you're experiencing restlessness at the table, if you are experiencing problems where people check out, if you're experiencing murder hoboism, if you're experiencing all these issues, the problem's you, bro. Sorry to say. It's right. You as a DM. So we've dedicated this show to talking about a set of principles, behaviors, or DM tools that you can easily repeat, practical stuff to make your games better.
Yeah.
So we've defined the problem. We've talked all about it now. Aimlessness. It's the biggest monster you have to conquer.
Yes. But
it has an Achilles heel, and it's an easy fix. And that is the solution. The best tool in your DM's toolbox, especially for session 1, as we've been talking about, is peril.
Peril. Right? It's that media res start right in the middle of the action for first adventure, session 1. But every adventure after that as well. Heroes need peril.
Yes. And
heroes are born of peril.
And it doesn't always have to be something to fight. It could be a nagging mystery to solve if that's sort of your jam.
Oh yeah.
But what I can say is I have never had a slow-paced game, or I've never had a game where people sort of walked away feeling unsatisfied whenever I've put them in peril, put their backs up against the wall, and give them plenty to do. And by plenty, I mean a plenty. Plenty to do.
There is peril happening while you're being pulled at from both sides of things going on that need to be accomplished.
Yes. And by the way, Joe, let me just say, why is that important? It's because people just took the time to make a character, right? Yes. Sometimes they spent like an hour, depending on your system, they spend an hour making their character. They thought about it for days. And ICRPG only takes 5 minutes, by the way. Big plug for ICRPG. Probably even less, an easy D6. But they've made their character. They've taken the time to write down their stats. They've taken the time to write down their cool abilities, their cool loot, like we just talked about.
I really want to use my greedy gloves. I want to use my backstabby coolness. I've got these masterwork daggers. Oh, we're shopping?
Yeah, right? It's just like it would be just like buying a new car. You've got a brand new car with all these features, right? But you got to sit in the back seat while somebody else drives you home for your car that you just bought.
Right.
You're going to be dying to get behind the wheel and to test it out and to use some of that stuff, to have that satisfaction. So don't deprive your players of the satisfaction of their character sheet and their cool abilities. Especially if you just build a fighter.
Yeah.
Right? You don't want to deprive your characters. So give them stuff to do. Peril is the answer. And I think we've identified 3 big buckets of peril.
Yes.
Three primary areas
add it.
of peril. One is a threat to the PCs themselves. That's the easy and most obvious. We're going to put something in their path that's going to threaten them, make their lives miserable. 2, my favorite, threats to innocence.
Yes.
And I would say also as a corollary to that, maybe even a threat to the world, which we'll talk about.
That's still threatening innocence.
Yep.
That's just on a far larger scale. That's the Death Star. Alderaan is coming into view. Yep. There is peril. There's a threat to innocence.
And by the way, I would just say a shout out to our boy Dennis.
Yes.
This is his master stroke. Like, he does this so well. And then 3, I would say the third bucket is environmental.
Yes.
So threats to the PCs themselves, threats to innocence / the world, and environmental perils.
Yep.
Okay.
Indeed.
Or / a trap, I would say, because traps are environmental peril.
Oh, they very much are. Sure, they're constructed, but it's still a threat within this environment that you are in. And usually traps are, most commonly we see them set up in things like dungeons or in other confined spaces.
So, Joe, let's talk about the first one here. Threats to the PCs themselves. What's kind of your go-to, or what would be your advice in terms of putting players in peril? I mean, you just got done doing this to a degree in our council game, and you had some good feedback about this too. So, what do you think are is sort of one of the best ways to threaten the PCs themselves?
Right. Well, I mean, the obvious direct threat: give them something to fight. That is a direct threat, pinpointed right to the characters. You've got this big thing that, the work must be done. You will all be destroyed. Like, antagonize them. Your pitiful tricks mean nothing to me. Antagonize them, threaten them. It could be verbally. And then all these big monsters, whatever, can come in. Like, you can directly threaten them with that combat. And that is it's a big part. It's one of those cornerstone pillars of the hobby, is that combat.
Absolutely.
I think that's the easiest direct threat to the PCs.
Absolutely. You're walking through the woods, you hear the howl, boom, the wolves are there.
The wolves are there.
Right. I mean, that's pretty, the pretty basic, at its most basic formula.
Walking through the woods, arrow sticks into a tree. Please kindly remove all of your belongings. We've got 30 arrows trained on each of you.
Right. Or, oh God, it's Knowles.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Or
bring on the hyena men.
Yeah. Or you fool of a took.
Yes.
Yes. The goblins and the trolls show up.
Right? Direct threat.
The orcs
you can
are
hear
there.
The drums.
Yes, the orcs are there like 3 seconds later, like banging down a door.
Yes.
Like, perfect. You're walking through an alley, the assassins jump out, you're in the tavern, the evil dudes stand up or burst through the door.
You're just trying to order a drink in the tavern. He says he doesn't like you. I don't like you either. You'll be dead. Threaten direct.
Yep, you're in the graveyard. The hand starts to reach up out of the the musty earth, right? Like any and all of that happens, and now the PCs have got to fight.
Yeah,
I will say.
And funny enough, though, the other things can also be direct threats to the PCs. Both of our other spots, threatening innocence and threatening, environmental threats, those can also be directly focused at PCs.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And we'll talk about that.
We'll get into that as we go, yeah.
But I did want to say on this last call, Larry, it doesn't always have to be something to fight necessarily. If you're running one of those intrigue drama games, it could be the threat of, exposure or being turned into the constables, or they could suddenly face a dilemma. But from my standpoint, those sometimes lack the immediacy,
right?
Of, oh my God, there are arrows flying at us, or oh my God, one of those goblins in the back is a spellcaster and he's about to melt our faces off.
Right.
Like, to me, that is far more compelling. And so,
in our council game, not this recent one, but the first session, the slick stairs, as you guys were coming down and you start moving down. And then there was a few of those Durgar coming up the steps. It kind of turned into a possibility of a threat of discovery.
Exactly.
Because you were unknown going down that deep at first. It turned into a combat, but it could have been a stealth challenge of trying to hide from these things as they're just moving through on their regular business.
Absolutely. Or you're infiltrating the camp.
Yep.
Right? And you don't want to be discovered. I think that's great. But the big takeaway, I would say, especially if you're new or maybe you're new to this sort of philosophy, is you want the danger to be compelling.
Yeah.
And when the danger is compelling, players have something instantly to do, and you're going to get them rolling dice as fast as possible. And if people are rolling dice and using their character and they're immersed and they're interfacing with the world and they're not aimless, guess where their fun is? It's up here, and they're going to be having a good time. So that's the goal that I hope for all of you, with this simple tool that you can implement. All right. How about threats to innocence? Let's just break off that chunk first. Let's talk about innocence first. And then, actually, I need to back up. I need to back up. Yeah. I need to back up. Because to me, one of the best examples of putting the PCs in perils is Prisoners of Moloch. So if you haven't seen the Runehammer video on 3 encounters to start your campaign, Prisoners of Moloch is one of the best showcases of this. The players wake up, they're chained to columns, they're in these rusty cages, and they see some fool get thrown off a pier and fed to a slime cube.
Yeah.
And the ghouls are now on their way back to drag one of the PCs who are just in loincloths, like they have nothing, to drag one of these poor hapless PCs and feed them to the slime cube.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Showed them what's going to happen.
Right.
And then they're coming for you.
If you don't act, if you don't do something, you will get fed to a slime cube and your character will be dead. I can't think of a better immediate peril.
You've got 1 round. I just rolled the timer die.
God.
In 1 round, they are grabbing you.
Before those ghouls are at the door to your cage. So what will you do? notice the immediacy, notice how compelling that is. Like, oh my God, we've got to act now.
Yeah.
And then instantly players are in it, they're immersed, and they're having fun. It's a very simple equation.
And there's time pressure.
Yep. Yeah, and we're going to talk
Especially, I mean, that's a tight roll right there.
Tight.
Got one round.
Tight.
This is it. This moment right here, your turn. Because next, when it comes to my turn, my timer is expiring and those dudes are grabbing you and you're getting pitched over the edge.
Yeah, or at least dragged in that direction. They still might have one or two more rounds. Yep, exactly. Before they make it.
At least a round.
Yep. Right. And then their problems just compounded, right? Because now the other players also have to try to now help that player.
Yep.
And notice how
rescue and escape.
Notice how immediately they get focused. Notice how immediately they're forced to work as a team. Right? They're not off doing murder hobo type stuff. They're forced now to deal with a problem. It's the best example I can think of a way to put players in peril. All right. Threats to innocence.
Right. We can take a look right at that same video, 3 encounters to start. We've got burning at New Haven. That is an immediate threat to an innocent. I think we've talked about this in one of the previous videos.
Yeah. Let me
come into.
If you'll allow me, Joe, let me set the scene.
Yes.
It's raining. You've been walking for days. You come into this town where this sort of ominous, oppressive feel hangs over the town. The streets are thick with this black mud that have just gotten soupy from the rain. And as you enter the town, the air is thick with the smell of burning flesh. Right?
Yes.
And you get there, and then there are these witch hunters, and they're strapping this young girl to a post. And she's like blonde-haired and blue-eyed. She's the fairest thing in 100 miles, right? And she's screaming and sobbing and wailing as they're putting manacles and they're dousing this oil and tallow around the wood to light it off. Roll your timer.
Right. What do you do?
What do you do? Right.
There's an innocent in peril right off the bat as an opening adventure,
as an
opening encounter.
Yep. So 3 encounters to start your campaign. That's the second one, a burning in New Haven. I would be shocked, Joe, and Hank makes this point too, if the PCs just went, good luck, kid, and strolled into the tavern for a pint, right?
Right. Oh, hey, look, they're burning a child. You guys want something to drink?
Yeah, listen, if that's your group, you've got bigger problems as a DM, right? If that's your group, like maybe we'll talk about how to deal with that sort of behavior another time. But putting an innocent in peril like that is perfect because, again, we're back to something compelling. We're back to giving something for the characters to do. They now have options, and they can come together as heroes, as a team to save this innocent and to do something productive.
Exactly. And another example, the innocence in peril. So our council game, Hankrin started out, he ran our first 2 sessions before I took over and, in running that. But that started out, we're all from this small village, Mouse, and a lot of our people have been going missing. My character, Valentino, his brother was one of the missing ones. And it was assumed that the vampires, the vampire lord or Earl Royce moving in from the, coming up north beneath us, was at fault. But a lot of them have been going missing farther to the north. And these were all people our characters knew. These were townsfolk. These were our neighbors. These were our friends.
People we cared about.
Yeah, family members, people we cared about, these innocents. That was our pull to go and investigate. Why are these people going missing? All of these people we know, that's a town full of innocents in peril. That's something that we had to go investigate. Where are our people at? And that's what led us into this whole situation here.
And then we saw them. We saw them as sort of these emaciated, sort of shuffling husks. And we almost sort of zombie like we knew something was wrong and we had to take action. We were propelled to action, which is what you want. I love it when it's just like, hey, in D4 rounds, the cultists are going to murder these people.
Yeah, the sacrifice will be made.
Yes, or in D4 rounds, they're going to throw these children into the pit. that kind of stuff. Or in D4 rounds, the volley of arrows will go out and they'll execute these people. Or they're rounding up villagers from homes.
Our Star Wars game, Xander beautifully. You guys all know how to push my buttons at this point. Kid in peril. Xander beautifully set us up when we got into that mining town, whichever, or that industrial town.
Yep.
We're coming in around the bend, and the stormtroopers had like 15 people lined up, firing squad style, and they were getting ready to drop all these innocent folks.
To drop them.
And that was our immediate thing coming in. It was like, shit, we have to get over there and do something because all of these innocent people are going to die. Absolutely. Because we are heroes, remember, and this is our goal: is to save these people, to right these wrongs.
Absolutely.
Because that's what heroes do.
And there are literally a million ways to do it. They're going to throw this girl off the cliff. You roll into buckskin and die.
I was just going to bring this up. The train.
Yep.
You blew a train up on us, and as we come out, the Dyer gang, or no, I think those were the O'Connells or O'Driscolls.
Yep.
The O'Driscoll gang was already coming in, and you put it right. And you had not only that there was a family in jeopardy, but then also a member of that family is dangling off the edge of the broken rails over this canyon, and he's going to lose his grip in 2 rounds.
Yep.
The husband, the father, is about to be shot. There was just innocence in peril at every turn, and they weren't all in the same place. So we had to figure out, we've got to go to X, Y, and Z different places from this spot while we're being surrounded. There's a couple, as you can see, we've got PCs under threat because these guys are trying to rob us. We've also got innocents at threat, and we're about to get to the environmental. We've got some environmental bits as well with this gaping canyon.
Yep. Well, and I would just say,
off the edge,
Dennis is such a master at this. The one thing that he does so well is he forces you to divide your attention across the playing space. And so you might have one boy dangling off the rails. You've got another family who's about to be killed. You've got other people who are being dragged out of the train, and they're going to be harmed in some way. And there are timers.
And all of them.
There are timers on each of those sentinel events. Right? And the players now, they've got to prioritize based on the time that they have to make choices. They've got dilemmas. Oh my God, we can't save them all.
Yeah.
What do we do?
That's the hard thing.
Whew. But
right?
man,
and they're all far away from where you are. They're all far in a different direction.
Far. So in terms of immersion, Joe, if we were to graph it, where would you say the player's immersion is at that moment when there's all of this crazy happening, right?
Right. There's buckets of sweat, man. It is up there. You've got buckets of sweat because you want to save them all.
Right.
But you might not be able to.
Might not. And then
it's going to take some clever play to do it.
Yes. As a corollary to this, there can also be a threat to the world or to, sort of a global thing, right? I once ran a campaign where under the town there was this giant cache of dynamite and gunpowder, and I mean all these goblins and orcs had tunneled this giant cavern out under the town. It was filled to the brim with explosives, and the scene begins as the players drop down. They discover the tunnel leading to this, and the goblin sappers streak off with torches.
Yes.
Right?
That's a powder keg you don't want to light.
Yeah, if you don't stop these sappers, the whole town's gone. It's going to be it's going to be cratered. Everybody up there, all these children you just talked to, who are just like, I think they went down the drain. All the kids you just spoke to are done, right? The party is done. It's also, by the way, a threat to them.
Yeah.
The same thing too, Dennis just ran this. You've got cultists who are assassinating people and throwing them off a cliff. On the other side of the cliff, they're destroying the shrines that keep the ancient evil at bay. Yes. And if they destroy all 3 of the shrines, the world's done. Right?
Just over.
So
it's not just the innocence here and now. It's all of the innocents.
It's right.
Around the world.
It's everyone. And so if you don't stop the ritual, if you don't keep the portal from opening, if you don't keep the the demon lord from rising, all of those sorts of things, the peril is even greater than you could have imagined. So and that's even better with time pressure.
Yes.
Right. But again, immersion is high. Players have something constructive to do, and they get to use their characters in fun ways. They get to roll dice. They get to team up. They get to do things that are productive and enjoyable. And really, it's your job to provide them with that sort of fun by putting obstacles in their path.
Yep. It's hard to be aimless when, there are 5 different things going on and all of them are bad.
And all of them are bad. Yep.
Yeah. And you and your party are the only things in the way of stopping that.
Yeah,
the only things there that can do something about it.
That's what true heroes are, man. They hold the keys to salvation potentially. So or they fail and we lament. Right.
Right.
Yep.
All right. Demon lands. we ultimately ended badly. It was TPK right at the end and we failed.
The final frame.
But yeah, that final frame was
inches away.
Mm-hmm. That game was so beautiful. Even though we died, folks, don't get me wrong. That wasn't a bad ending. That was oh my God. I can't wait to see what happens when we get to come back to that. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, Alex. To find out what the aftermath is.
Yep, nice. All right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about environmental peril.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. Like we've threatened PCs, we've threatened our NPCs, all these innocents. Like, what is this other branch of peril?
What's your favorite, Joe? You got it. You got a favorite? Yeah.
Ooh, like I really have to say, I think my favorite environmental threat is, I guess, broadly we could call it the unstable ground.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to be, that can mean a lot of things. Previously we talked about it. It could be swampland. It's kind of an unstable ground. It could be, in this old tomb, things are beginning to crumble. The ground is breaking away. It could be crossing the big giant Indiana Jones bridge. It's swaying, it's moving. Things are becoming more complicated because where you are standing is bad.
Yes.
The magma is rising all around you. The heat is getting intense. Things are starting to melt. So I think that's probably one of my favorite, because there are so many different ways you can implement that idea of the unstable ground. Airship teetering, a ship sinking at sea. Like, there are so many ways you could tweak that makes the environment hazardous.
Absolutely.
What are you going to do about it? How are you going to deal with this?
Right. It's not just monsters or enemies.
Oh yeah, and I would put them in too.
Right. Right. They may have to deal with that peril too.
Right.
But at the same time, you brought up an interesting example of this, Joe, before the episode started, as we were sort of talking about our show notes, and you mentioned the scene in Lord of the Rings.
Yes. Yep. Return of the King, swampland. Gollum is leading Sam and Frodo through that just horrible bog, the site of the war that Sauron was beat the first time, where the ring was lost into the world. Gollum was flat out telling them, stay on the path, because stay out of the water. There are dead in the water. And sure enough, Frodo kind of gets lost. He failed that charisma save as he got pulled in and drawn and fell into the water. And sure enough, the dead were reaching out for him. They were going to keep him down there. He was going to join them. So that's our unstable ground. And in that moment, our only threat was the environment. Because above, if they stayed on the dry ground, which was harder to do, we watched them stumbling and feet getting trapped, and stay out of the water the whole time. There were biting flies. They had to hide from the darkness flying overhead. I believe there were the Nazgul, wraiths with wings, as Gollum exclaimed. So that's a beautiful example right there, straight out of the media, of how that threat of not just hard to move, but stay out of the freaking water, because you might not get out.
Right. And I love it, because you might have to leap across. Anytime players got to leap across a thing, whether it's a chasm or they've got to stay on the dry ground and they can't, they can't get their feet wet, or the floor is lava. Like they,
Yeah.
they've got to jump from pillar to pillar or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that's all beautiful. Any sort of shaky ground, or they're clinging to a cliff face as the wind whips up and threatens to pry them off to oblivion. And by the way, if you threaten oblivion, you got to mean it. Like it's oblivion. Do not do that, by the way, in your first encounter. Do not threaten oblivion in your first encounter.
Also, if you're threatening oblivion, the cliff scenario, I would not make it a one and done.
Exactly.
Because how cheap would it feel if you just fall and you're dead and that's it because of one roll?
Yeah.
No, you get blown off the cliff. You slide down 10 feet. You barely catch on. You're hanging by that one hand. Oh my God. Now you got to try and climb yourself up. Can you get the other hand up? You failed that one. Your finger. Oh,
one finger.
Yep. That classic, Bink. Tweety birds popping those off. Somebody must save you now.
Yeah, and you fail that one, 3-roll minimum. You fail 3 rolls, you're done. Yep. Absolutely. But that's a huge environmental hazard.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, I just had a good one. It just went right out of my head. That's okay. I'll think of it.
Oh man.
But I once ran an encounter where the floor was ice. Every time you try to move, super slippery. You got to make that deck save. If you don't, you're going to fail. You're going to slip down. Any sort of ship-to-ship combat, as you pointed out, where the boats are rocking, or you're in airships and they're you've got to gain purchase. All those sorts of things. But don't threaten oblivion in the first encounter. That's
not right out the gate.
Not right out of the gate. Wait till there are a few sessions in, then spring that encounter on folks. Environmental factors, Joe, you pointed out, may even be something like, as the heat is rising, or the noxious fumes are spilling out, or you're getting cut by insects, or even just the foliage is like razor vines, like you're going through the thorns. You're taking small damage every round, or
even just 1 point of damage. One at a time over several rounds is going to start to get really scary.
Yes, or think about Red Sword, how great that adventure is, and every 1d4 rounds the anomaly happens and you must make a save, and if you fail you take 1d4 damage, and that's coming every 1d4 rounds the whole time you progress. Or how about even Cleo against the Swarmanord?
Oh gosh, yeah.
The swarming robots come flying in like razors, and every round you're diving to avoid. I mean, it's more of a monster.
That was fucking intense.
It's more of a monster, but it's almost an environmental threat. Oh,
just from the sheer size.
And that's I thought of it. Durathrax.
Oh God.
Durathrax arriving. Like, I didn't run that as a monster. Durathrax was an environmental hazard.
Oh yeah.
If she shows up,
big enough.
If she shows up, potentially the game is over, right?
And it's just that big of a threat.
It's that big of a threat. But anything in your environment that threatens, hampers, causes the PCs to have to make saves, causes them to take damage over time, that slows them down, that makes them haggard, that puts them on the back foot. Anything like that threatens their safety, causes them to have to jump or leap or climb or engage in some behavior.
Cross the desert using a very untempered or untempoed step method because you don't want to call the worms.
Yes, right.
The big sandworms. That's a kind of Durathrax environment threat because they're so massive.
And you raise an interesting point, Joe, because that leads maybe into potentially people thinking about travel. And let me just say, travel can be very uninteresting.
It can get aimless.
I would like to talk about travel maybe in another episode, because I think it's a whole topic unto itself. So there's a teaser.
Yeah, it really is.
For down the road.
Stay tuned for travel.
but travel, to me, does not reach that level of compelling nature. So for now, particularly if you're new, avoid travel. If you're doing walking across the desert, frame it as an encounter.
Yeah.
Right? So you've got to move from this point to this point in a defined space. If you fail your save to walk in a staggered fashion, the worm will arrive. Right? Or it may just be, if you don't got a thumper, the worm will arrive in 1d4 rounds. I don't care. It's coming.
Right?
Right? Because sometimes
See,
it's
that's
just
where
coming.
we get to an encounter.
Exactly.
That's an encounter you're going to play. The worm is coming. It is inevitable. It will be here in 3 rounds. You can see the rocks in the distance. And as this thing comes, we're getting back into that unstable ground because the vibration of this thing coming through is beginning to almost treat the sand like it's liquid because the vibration has those things and you're beginning to sink. You have got to keep moving.
Yeah.
That movement's a little tricky. Roll me a strength to push far enough ahead in this loose sinking sand.
You know, it's funny.
Just get out of it and run.
You mentioned quicksand. Like, quicksand is beautiful. Old Xander and I just had a conversation about quicksand. He's like, you know, when you're a kid, like, you sort of think that quicksand might be something you might encounter as an adult somewhere in your life. You know, turns out it's not that big of a deal as an adult. Like,
I'm still mad about it.
Right. You really don't have to worry about quicksand.
I was so prepared for quicksand and I've never even seen it.
But in RPG gaming, you do. Quicksand is a real environmental hazard that absolutely could impact you. There is a certain movie that features it very prominently that I don't want to give away because it's such a beautiful film.
Right.
It might be in a Predator franchise. You might want to check it out.
Right. Or even, you know, in the comedy aspect, you can go back to Blazing Saddles. There's a quicksand scene.
Blazing Saddles. Well, you know,
I got my foot on the rail. They got lucky. It was a shallow pit, but there's always a bottom in quicksand.
Princess Bride. Right.
Swamp of Sorrows.
So quicksand is a great environmental hazard. Like, you're just sinking. In fact, why don't DMs use quicksand more? You know, let me just pose that question. You should. You know, you're just sinking in the bog every round. Like, good luck making it across. And then, Joe, I would say to wrap this up, so to recap, we've got threats to the PCs themselves, threats to innocence or the world, or both, environmental hazards, which we didn't talk about, which is a trap, right?
So traps.
You get the PCs in the space, a confined space, and the ceiling is crumbling. You know, you've got to pick the lock before the cave-in happens. Or trash compactor, right?
Shut down all compactors at the detention level. No, shut them all down.
Right, exactly. All right. The trash compactor, man, like the spikes rise, the darts come out, you remove the idol and the big stone comes chasing you. All of those are environmental hazards as well. So threats to PCs. Traps. Threats to PCs, threats to innocence, environmental hazards, and or traps.
And even the rundown. The movie The Rundown. There's a beautiful trap when they're going in for El Gato. All of those posts that are crossed everywhere. So you're making dex checks to get through and not disturb these posts to get the Gato. But the wood is so old, like, dang, I accidentally bumped that one. It wasn't bad, but it splintered the wood. And up above, it's just a pack load of boulders.
God.
You've got D4 rounds. Those suckers are coming down. Run for it.
If
there's a scene in Andor, you guys will see it. You got to see it. There's a scene in Andor that the trap environment, I'm watching it last night and I'm like, oh my God, I'm rolling timers. This is a scene. This is an encounter. We're doing this.
Right. And man, if that isn't compelling, if you don't have high immersion at that point, like, get out. Get out of my game. Right. So that's awesome. And then, Joe, probably the biggest takeaway here, and you've alluded to it already, is that you can include all 3 of these things in one encounter. That might be maybe a little bit advanced, but as you're planning a room or a discrete space for your players to put them in peril, all 3.
Yeah, I mean, we just had it the other night in the last game. There was, you know, you had all those Durgar that, you know, there's a couple Durgar, you had to fight them.
Threat to
lava rising.
Threat to your players. Environmental threat. Lava rising.
Was rising. And then there were the screams of the innocents, your townsfolk that you came in here to save, screaming for help because they were trapped and could not get out as all of this is going on. So, I mean, granted, the innocents were not in that same room, but these all like pulled through because could hear the screams as you're finishing up that one Durgar that would not die, but it was getting harder because the magma was like 2 rounds away from swallowing everybody.
Correct.
So you're getting through there. Everybody's running. I think some of the guys had gotten into that next space where
we had a bridge to jump because the lava had
the
washed
lava
out.
had already exactly,
Yep.
and that's where the PCs were screaming,
And we were
as
trapped.
or the innocents, the NPCs.
We were trapped. The PCs were on the other side screaming. Death was right behind us. Certain death. I mean, that's why, Joe, I mean, to put a nice bow on all this, like, that was an amazing episode. You conquered the aimlessness monster. It did not even get a grip on your game because of all those purposeful behaviors. So, guys,
and that was all 3 bundled in.
Yep, guys, gals, non-binary pals. This is sort of the stuff that we want you to consider for your games, because it just takes them to the next level without having to do a ton of work, right? Without having to do a ton of work, you can walk away and have an exciting, compelling game.
Yeah, indeed. And feel free, again, like, hit us up down in those comments. Let us know. Are there questions you have? Certain scenarios that might be like just stuck in your brain. You've got this cool idea, but you're not sure how to implement it to get players to fully engage with it.
Absolutely.
Or even if you've got examples of awesome ways that you've used all these different tools to like bring the peril, like, let us know, guys. Let us know.
Yeah, like, what is your favorite type of peril, or your favorite way to threaten PCs or innocents, or your favorite environmental hazard? You know, like the choking mist. That's my favorite. Like, it's just a mist, but if it gets you, like, you're making con saves because you're being suffocated. Like, if it gets in your nose and your mouth, you're done.
Right.
I love that mist.
Strange things come in the mist. They do not know if what they see is real.
Yeah.
Maybe it is real.
Yeah. So the zombies are after you. The mist is coming. And by the way, that old man with the wooden leg, he just fell down. You gotta go get him from the zombies in the mist and save yourselves too. Good luck.
Right.
Oh, we're gonna leave you with that thought.
Right. You need real quick. You need the old man. He's the only pilot you know, and he's got to fly the plane.
Yeah, you can't fly a seaplane. No way.
You better go back and save him, or you're not getting off this island.
Yeah, you better save him. All right, gang, no matter where you are in terms of your game prep this week, in terms of your playing or DMing, we wish you the absolute best of luck.
Absolute.
And Joe?
Yeah, in the meantime, take my hero coin and always roll ultimate. Thanks much, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.